Good afternoon. How are you today? Well, we made it to the 70s, and things are going green already, which is nice. And there's no wind today, so it's pleasant to be in many places in America, and there is no fighting in my neighborhood. I've heard over the years from both philosophers and coaches on teams that thoughts are things. Meaning, if you believe in something, you increase your chances of achieving it. And for those who ride horses, there's this notion when a horse comes to a big jump, an experienced horseman will say, if you throw your heart over the jump, the horse will follow. I believe that Zelensky has been playing into that. I don't mean dishonestly. I think that he feels it. He feels it for his countrymen, for his family. He feels it in terms of the history, knowing about the Soviets. He must have been touched by the anti-Semitic remarks about who and why Putin was going into Ukraine. So there are a lot of sinister forces at work. But I worry about the thoughts or things on the other side. You may remember the movie Altered States, in which the notion of changing your consciousness also, in fact, changed the physicality of the individual. Well, if you have positive thoughts and you fall and break your arm, your thoughts aren't going to put it back together again. It's going to take a surgeon. But there are margins where it makes a difference. And we have 74% of the nation now supports a no-fly zone and sending planes to Ukraine. And tomorrow we're going to hear from Zelensky, and I'm looking forward to seeing if his magic works in a nation that's already predisposed to support him. And at the same time he's coming here, Biden is planning a trip to Europe and to Brussels. And the question is, will he try to go to Poland as well? Now, the president of Poland will be at this meeting in Brussels. So it's not necessary if he just wants to confer with the president of Poland, clear the air about the planes. It would also be a good opportunity for him to announce a change of policy. And I think it would be bearable. I don't know why we would give any thought to reassurances from China as sufficient and satisfactory that they are not helping each other. They've had a long history, and anybody who's spent any time even superficially reading the relationship between Russia and China knows that it's much more complicated, and there have been much more different kinds of events than the United States has ever had with the Soviets. In fact, if it wasn't for FDR, we probably would not have gotten along with Stalin in World War II. And FDR played up to him a great deal, to the embarrassment of Winston Churchill, who was at those meetings of the Big Three. And then when the war was over, we had allowed Russia to get further into nation states and occupy them. And there was a joke about the division of Berlin into 4 parts, how England got a productive part, and Russia got the agriculture to the east, and we got the scenery. That was the story. We apparently didn't care, but maybe we should have. And a wall came down across all of Europe as Russia showed itself to be interested, in fact, an advocate for the communism as opposed to the capitalism. And they saw it as a world undertaking or campaign. And so if you look at Putin as the latter-day Stalin, or at least of that school of thought, then you understand why we can't trust the thing he says. There was a book in the 50s that I read, and it said, you can trust the Russians. And then it had a subtitle, to be Russians. In other words, you could trust them to lie. And it explained in the book that I read as a kid that lying was considered a fair tactic. And it's as if we haven't gotten these lessons. We live in a world of protocol and process that sometimes ignores the hard history. And I don't presume to supplant the knowledge of, say, a McCall or some of the commentators we've had. But I'm glad to see that myself and others are trailing in their tread, that we have the same view. And this is a great opportunity we're going to miss if we're not careful. Two other short notes that I can think of. One is Garland is talking about no politics, no partisanship in the Department of Justice. Now, I've been thinking about this stuff my whole life, and I'm sure all of you have too. But if taking over a government is not political, what is? If a partisan tint to the overthrow is not partisan, what is? So by the definition of what Garland thinks is political or partisan, and that would bar any investigation or prosecution, who is he fooling? I mean, is it possible that he cannot think clearly enough to parse out the elements of the challenge to our democracy by people who happen to be Republican and who were immersed in the foolishness, the fanciful arguments and statements of Trump, followed by all of his ditto friends, and to think that you could have an overthrow of a government that was not political. So anyhow, we wait and see. And if your life depended upon this man acting, you should find a plan B immediately. And that plan B in this case is, of course, prosecutors independent of this son of a bitch, because you can't trust him to do anything. And I'm so sick of all these apologists saying, it's hidden, it's something, it's going, they're doing something. No, they're not. None of these things are happening. Another great disappointment in the political landscape is Manchin again. He opposes a proposed nominee, Raskin, for the Federal Reserve. Now keep in mind, they made this guy the head of the Energy Committee, and he is Mr. Fossil Fuel. He is so much for coal and oil and fracking and everything else. Of course he's against somebody who's for climate change, and we need his vote. What is wrong with the Democratic Party that they would make this guy the chair of the Energy Committee so that he could do such havoc to our policy? So, we do little things around the edges about the environment, and then we have Manchin in there to mess it up. His reward to destroy an agenda that we sign on to in international treaties, and we fail at home. There it is. So, I'm going to wash that Manchin right out of my mind and enjoy the walk on this beautiful day. And can you see there's some green out here? All the best. Bye-bye.